Hi, it's Matt, and this is the second part of today's Matt's Morning Monologue, Monologues double feature. Today's a very special day. It's Labor Day, and so it's special because of that, and it's also special because it was a goal of mine to do a monologue a day every morning. I know sometimes I did them at night and in the afternoon, like I'm doing this one. But it was a goal of mine to do one a day. And so as a result, I now have, I think this is the 53rd one, starting on July 16th. I may have either missed a day or miscounted. So maybe I actually have 54. There were a few days where I skipped because I was doing something, or maybe I just needed a day or whatever. So in that case, like there were a few days where I doubled up, like today. So I just wanted to share with you kind of like not necessarily what inspired me to do it. Well, maybe what inspired me to do it, but then also kind of what sustained me while I was doing it. And there were a couple of things. First of all, there is this book right here. It's called Redirect, and it's called Changing the Stories We Live by this guy, Timothy D. Wilson. He, shout out to my daughter Kirsten, because he went to Hampshire College. Anyway, so there is this part of the book, and it's an exercise. It's a writing exercise. The book isn't necessarily like a writing book. It's a psychology book anyway, but there's this writing exercise that's here in it. And he says, basically what you do is you think about your life in the future, and you imagine that everything has gone as well as it possibly could. You've worked hard and succeeded at accomplishing all of your life goals. Think of this as a realization of your life's dreams. Now write what you imagined. And then he goes on to say to make sure that you write like how you got there. And what I took that to mean is like to write about like what roadblocks might come up for you. So what I did a bunch of times, and I did this not only for this morning monologue thing, but I did it for these movies that I did with my good pal Josh Liveright a couple of years ago. And what I did was I write every morning. I did it for a bunch of mornings, not every morning, but maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 or whatever. And I tried to do it in a row. Tried to write about like imagining myself like having completed the project, right? And how good it feels, like, and putting it in the present tense, like, oh, here I am. Like maybe on July 16th, I'm like writing like, oh, it's Labor Day, the sun's shining through, and I feel so accomplished because I did my morning monologue project, whatever. And and then I write the things that sort of possibly could come up, and like I try to imagine at that point in the beginning things that like sort of typically become roadblocks for me, like, oh, I stayed up too late and I was tired, but you know what? I had a cup of coffee and I did it anyway. That kind of a thing. Like, oh, I had to do this, but I found the time later on. And then I also made sure to forgive myself early on, like if I missed a day or something like that. And I wrote that in. I was like, I forgave myself for the times I forgot, or the times blah, 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 whatever. And like I said, I did that a whole bunch of times, and I find that's really, really helpful. Something else, we have this book in our apartment. It's Twyla Tharp, The Creative Habit, and the reason I cracked it open was because my daughter Una had to read it for school, or had to get it for school. Anyway, so we both read it together. Una has her copy and I have a copy that was in our apartment. And a couple of things that really helped me with this morning monologue thing from this book is that she talks about giving yourself an aggressive quota. Like, and I took that to mean like, setting out like a really tall task for yourself, like something like really ridiculous, like doing a monologue a day, which felt that way for me. Anyway, so, and she goes on to write, Twyla Tharp does, that a lot of interesting things happen when you set an aggressive goal, even with ideas. People's competitive juices are stirred. Instead of panicking, they focus, and with that comes increased fluency, agility of mind. People are also forced to suspend critical thinking, and that was key for me, to sort of suspend judgment of what I was going to do. I generally did everything like sort of like just one take, and I was just sort of like doing it to just sort of like get them done, and I felt like that got me out of my critical mind and made me productive or whatever. And something else that she talks about in here, she talks about like finding the spine of the thing for you, and I took that to mean like find out like what the essence is, like why are you doing it, like what's the quality of it or whatever. And then she talks about this thing called scratching, and that was really cool for me. Scratching is sort of like looking in places for inspiration. Maybe you're reading the New York Times or the Atlantic magazine or whatever, something, and you're really doing it sort of not on autopilot, but like looking to be influenced by something. And for me, that was really helpful. So for example, I went out on my run the other day, and I saw all these really beautiful wildflowers, and then I was like, oh my gosh, they're so beautiful, and I was like looking at them and everything, and then I thought to myself like, oh, wouldn't that be funny to be a character who just can't get any rigorous exercises because he's just like so taken by the wildflowers around him. So I did, and that was kind of, after I listened, that was sort of like anyway, I don't want to judge it, but so that's the idea of, so those were the things that really helped me. This redirect book by Timothy Wilson, there was the writing exercise, which I kind of modified actually. I did it differently than he presents it. He doesn't say, I don't think he says to write it like in the present tense, like as if it but that was sort of my twist on it. And I also didn't do it like for like my whole life goals. I just did it for like the specific thing. I feel like it might be more overwhelming for me to do the other, but hey, maybe I'll try it. And then of course the Twyla Tharp book, The Creative Habit, and the idea of setting an aggressive quota and having a spine, or knowing like the essence. And for me, it's kind of secret for me what that is. Like I won't reveal that to anyone because that's kind of personal. But then also like the idea of scratching, looking for inspiration, whatever comes up. And so that's it. Thank you so much. And I am, from now on, what I'm going to try to do is, with my morning monologues, I'm going to try to now go back and refine them, and then sort of puzzle them together in a sort of a larger piece. And I want to complete that, what I'm thinking, by my birthday, November 17th. So maybe on November 17th, I'm going to do a performance. You know what? I'm going to do that. On November 17th, I'm going to do a performance of my morning monologues, edited, tweaked, pieced together. And I'll continue to do them as well. So, but anyway, thank you so much.